And as promised from last week, this is my pulled pork recipe. Super easy. Most of it's going straight into the Instapot. Now keep in mind, if you do not have an Instapot, you can put this in a regular people cooking pot or a pressure cooker. But if you use a regular people cooking pot, it will take longer. But you're just cooking it long enough for the meat to start to fall apart. To start off with, I am going to go ahead and chop my onions. Anytime that you are using a knife, remember knife safety. Be very careful and don't cut your fingers. Placing all of that into a bowl. I probably could have just thrown it all in there, but I wanted to sear my meat first. And said meat, got it super cheap from the Walmarts. You could probably get it cheaper at Sam's. This is where we usually buy our meat, is at Sam's. Now I'm making sure to drain it and go ahead and wash it off to get all that gunk off of it, because I want it to be nice and ready for whatever seasoning I decide to put on it. And make sure you wash your hands anytime you handle raw meat. You don't want to get everybody sick. Really and truly, wash your hands. Just wash your hands. To start off with, I usually try, I keep saying to start off with, this is not one of those things. Usually with these, I have to cut a lot of fat off. This one did not have a whole lot of fat, so I didn't have to worry about that. But I am going to go ahead and get my pot started and heated up. I do apologize about shaky cam. I did not realize the cord was hitting the stand that I have my phone on. But we're going to have that on saute mode, which I will show you here in a second. On the Instapot, it's that button at the bottom, and then we're going to cook it as a beef stew once everything's in there and ready to go. But as you cut your meat, you're going to go ahead and throw it inside and let it sear and get a good browning on it before you go to the next step. Now you can go ahead and skip this part of the process altogether, the cutting up of the meat, and just throw the whole piece in there since it was so small. But I like doing it this way because I think it cooks faster and more evenly, and I don't have to worry about it being raw in the middle. I lied about the onions. I guess I am going to throw it in there. I forgot that I did that. Before I get too jazzed about my butter, I am going to go ahead and wash my knife and my cutting board and my hands yet again, because I do not want cross-contamination. I don't want to get everybody sick or myself sick, so we have to make sure to stay clean. And instead of using my giant Michael Myers knife, I am just going to use a little old butter knife to cut my butter. And you don't have to worry about cutting it in little strips, just half a stick will do. Just throw it right in there, and that's all you need to worry about. Because whenever you're cooking in the Instapot or in the pressure cooker, you're just supposed to kind of cover your meat with a little bit of water and to let it finish doing its thing. Now I did get onions all over the place, and I'm making sure to stick it over in my pile for stuff going to the compost. Adding a bit of garlic. I know it's a big surprise, onion and garlic, but that's just how I roll. I like the flavor, family likes the flavor, so that's what we do. And periodically through this, I am going to turn the meat to make sure that it browns evenly on the edges. Even with the onions, I probably should have waited to throw the onions in there until I was ready to go ahead and close the lid. But I was in a hurry, I was hungry, and usually when I'm hungry, you have all of 20 minutes before I'm a totally different person. So we rushed a little, and I made sure to clean up as I went. That way I didn't have a giant mess to clean up later. That's a good tip if you're cooking for a lot of people and you don't feel like doing a lot of cleanup once you're done. And I did speed this portion up because the hurry up and wait is not fun to watch. Before closing it up, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste, and then I'm going to add some water to this and close the lid and wait. Once my machine started beeping at me that it was finished, I go ahead and turned it off and released the steam from the nozzle at the top, which is pretty much the same whenever you're using a pressure cooker. Just be very careful because that steam is extremely hot. At this portion, I'm going to go ahead and get my tools and my plastic baggies ready for whenever I take the meat out. And you'll see what the baggies are for here in a few moments. Once that pressure valve at the top goes down, you can either use 2 forks to spread it apart to shred it, or you can use this method, which I think is a lot easier on your fingers. I don't like burning my hands, and this definitely helps. Now you can wait till it completely cools off before you do this process, but like I said earlier, I was hungry and impatient, so it needed to get done yesterday. I do apologize for my giant head getting in the middle of the frame. I did not realize I was doing that. I'm so sorry. But I am making sure that I get every piece of meat out, and I kind of do it evenly in each bag, which is another reason why to cut it up as thin as I do. And I was having some issues because it was falling apart while I was trying to grab it. You're just going to zip up the baggies, that way it doesn't get everywhere. And then I like to use a paper towel to keep from burning my hands. And we're just going to smush it down and beat it up a little. That way it's nice and shredded. You can also just use a meat tenderizer if you prefer not to do this, but this is kind of therapeutic. I like adding the seasoning at this point because I think that it gets into the meat a lot better than whenever I'm cooking it in the Instapot. For some reason that flavor and that heat does not transfer well. But if I do it this way, I make sure that we can get a good taste of it. And it's just my jalapeno red pepper seasoning and some barbecue sauce. Sometimes I'll put chili powder in there. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of brown sugar. It's really up to taste and how you want it. Sometimes I won't even put the barbecue sauce in here. I'll just throw some of the seasoning in there and use it for making pulled pork tacos. But for this, I did want some sandwiches, so we made sure to mix it up really well with the barbecue sauce. That is sweet and spicy, I think. Because I'm trying to watch what I'm eating and I'm trying to avoid bread as much as possible, I had mine without. It was delicious.